Hey everyone, it's Tom at Severn Woodcraft, and today I'm going to begin a restoration project of this little toy piano. This belongs to a friend of mine at work. Hi Tori. From what I understand, it was at her grandparents' house, I believe, and now it's in her possession, and she wanted to see if there was anything I could do to restore this little piano. I looked online, and there actually is a collector's group for this particular brand, Shoenhut. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Half German, I don't know if I got that right. But this particular model originally was sold with a little toy bench, and it can be found on eBay and other online outlets selling between $100 to $250, depending on condition, and if you have the original bench that came with it. So I'm going to look inside of this. I already know that we have some damage on the outside. I've got some veneer to replace here on this corner. You know, it is a kid's toy, so it's seen better days. I'm going to look more into it, see what year it was produced and that kind of stuff, and get some fun facts together for it. But join me as I go through and see what I can do to bring this little toy piano back to life. So I found the Wikipedia. Schoenhut Piano Company was started in 1872 by Albert Schoenhut, who began making toy pianos when he was a kid in Germany, immigrated to the United States, and started the Schoenhut Piano Company after he repaired pianos for another toy maker. Later on, they expanded to dollhouses and dolls and some very creepy circus figurines and toys. Other information that I found online is that best I can date this particular model, maybe possibly sold during the 1960s. Not really sure. There's a stamp under the keyboard that I thought may have been the date code. It has 9 and 43. So I thought maybe, okay, this was produced in September of 1943, but I can't find any evidence other than these were produced in the 1960s. So when I opened it up, I found that the keys were just connected to little hammers, and they strike a metal rod, and each rod's a different length to create the note. And so that hammer just strikes the little steel rod and makes the nice little chiming noises you hear from the piano when you play it. Here I just took a simple solution of dish liquid and water and used the foam brush just to see if that dirt would lift with just some simple soap and water. And it started to work, and it appears it was going to work out. And in a minute or so, you'll see how I take the rest of the piano apart so I can clean the keys more thoroughly. Look at that schmutz. Delicious.
damage to the right side was the most severe thing that I encountered on the toy. And luckily, I buy these veneer packs from Amazon, and I usually keep them on hand just so I can identify wood when someone brings something to me and I need to figure out, well, what's the species I'm dealing with. In this case, I was really lucky because I was able to use them as a patch. And right now, I'm kind of holding each piece up to the piano and trying to figure out which grain would match best and what's the best base color for the stain I'm going to use. It looked like someone may have glued this back on in the past. This piece was abrased and broken, and I knew I was going to have to remove most of it if I was going to fix it. And this little lake here had some glue, plastic, I'm not really sure what it was, but it was easy to remove with the chisel. And this is my utility chisel, it's not my good chisel. Some people see this online and wonder why in the heck I'm using a chisel to remove adhesive, but it does the job. Voila, and I finally figured out that the keys were removable and could be cleaned and put back in place very easily. It's actually a very clever design on how these keys fit into this little space. So you can see up there in the top corner, there was a fortune inside the piano that was placed there at some point. It was kind of funny, I found it. It's also a penny, I'll take that as payment. Lint. That's a woven black cloth that's at the bottom below the keys. And I thought about using maybe some kind of soap or shampoo to clean it, but I decided against it. I didn't want to risk further damaging the toy. At this point in the process, I had thought about possibly maybe whitening or taking de-yellowing the keys if I could, There are some processes I've seen online where you can take peroxide or baking soda and a UV light and possibly de-yellow white plastic toys and white plastic in general. But once again, I did not want to risk damaging any of the parts of the toy. They do clean up pretty nicely, and you'll see in a moment what was left behind after I was finished cleaning everything off. I wanted to do what I could to save the name. I didn't want to have to rebrand it or possibly lose it altogether. So I gave it a little bath, and then I found a little pencil mark to the left, so I was able to take a pencil eraser and get rid of that. And I decided to give it a light little brushing with some steel wool, and I was hoping that once I would spray some of the lacquer that I was going to use to revarnish the piano, that those little nicks would kind of begin to disappear possibly. Spray can lacquer is one of my favorite finishes for small projects because it dries so quickly. Just going to do the same here for this part of the piano. Just give it a good bath and give it a scuff, and hopefully just spraying it with the lacquer would help me be able to keep the original stain and varnish in place and not have to sand that part of the piano. And you can see that date stamp, or whatever stamp it is, up in the left corner there. And at first I thought that may have been the date of production, but I'm not really sure, since most of the info I found online, like I said before, this one was produced in the 1960s. So this is the very top of the piano, and the other pianos I found photographs of online, this seems to be the most damaged piece of all the ones I saw in photographs. A lot of rings from drinks and other stains from, kids playing with this little toy. This one has a blue cup stain, and I was hoping by using this particular varnish remover, which is really safe to use, no smell, and it works great. No harmful chemicals in this. I'll let it sit for about 15 minutes and scrape the varnish as it turns into a fine gel. Then I'll spray on a second coat, and I'll wipe it down with steel wool, and that really begins to clean all of the lacquer from the original job. I had accidentally taken a piece of the plywood edging off here when I was rubbing it down with the steel wool. But you'll see here in a moment, I'm able to fix it and make it look almost as good as new. What I've learned in my 2.5 years of being a serious woodworker, it's not about doing everything perfect the first time, but it's knowing how to correct your mistakes. You're working with wood, and it's imperfect, and sometimes things happen, but if you know how to fix it, no problem. This is the point I realized I glued my marking knife to my finger. So this is the test veneer with a test stain on it, and it looks like it was a pretty good match. Always use a respirator whenever you're sanding in the shop or using anything that has a strong chemical odor. You never know. You can't be too safe. At this point, I decided to begin sanding by hand and also with my random orbital sander to get the rest of the varnish and stain and try to get down to the bare wood as much as possible. The lacquer finish was so thin and so brittle that it came right up with a sander, and I decided not to go with the stripper that I used on the top of the piano. In tight spaces, I like to take a razor blade and use it as a scraper to get into tight corners and any other areas where it's tough for the sander to reach. Grab one of my nice sharp chisels to take that veneer off the side so I can get a straight edge to fit the patch. So I put some packaging tape on this 1/4-inch plywood that I'll use as a clamp to press the veneer next to the piano after I apply the glue to it. I use a carpenter's wood glue to adhere it to the piano. I wanted to save this top piece here, so I stuff a little bit of glue where it was separating, and that'll get clamped together with the new veneer and everything will be fine. I had to build up 2 layers of veneer to meet the original surface of the plywood on the side.
So I was able to get this sanded. The top is ready, and even though it's seen some abuse over the years, I think once the stain goes on and we get the lacquer sprayed on it, we'll be fine. I was able to get that veneer patch to repair the side here, and I think it turned out pretty well. So once we get the stain on there, we'll see how that turns out. I think we've got a good match. What I've decided to do is use a gel stain called Cherry Wood. And this section right here, I'm not going to stain. I'm going to touch that up. It's not in too bad a shape, so I sanded it with 220, went over it real lightly. I'm going to go over it with a little bit of stain, kind of do a wash over it, not really a full-on stain like the rest of it. And then once we spray the lacquer on and get 2 or 3 coats of lacquer on there, I think everything should come together just fine. The lacquer turned out really well on the nameplate. This piece here, which was not glued in, it is just a piece that friction fits right into these grooves here. Fits down just like that. And I put 1 coat of lacquer on it so far, and it filled in a lot of the dents and little abrasions that had happened over the years. So I think this will be fine. I wanted to save the nameplate. I didn't want to have to replace that or get rid of it altogether. So now we're going to move on to applying the stain, and I'm going to let that dry overnight, and tomorrow will be the lacquer and reassembly. And it's moving along quite well.
Gel stain is my favorite way to apply stain to wood. It goes on so easily, it applies very evenly, and if you can find the color that you like in a gel stain product, I highly recommend choosing this first.
So I have now refinished all the parts. I applied stain to this as you saw before, and then last night before I went to bed, I applied 2 coats of spray can lacquer to it, semi-gloss. And then this morning I cleaned off all the dust nibs that may have been left behind with some 4-0 steel wool. So now I'm going to assemble the whole piano back together, and then we're done. So the toy piano is refinished. It's all complete. And using the spray can lacquer, it really is the way to go. It can dry so quickly. You can get multiple coats in within an hour, hour and a half. And it's a great durable finish, especially for a toy like this. I'm hoping my buddy Tori appreciates and takes care of this. And I don't know what she's going to do with it, display it, or actually let another kid touch it. Not sure. I don't know what I would do. Doing a project like this that's close to someone's heart is exactly what I'm into. I'm in the middle of a long refinishing project with a dining room table set that's been kind of dragging, and doing something like this gives me a little bit more energy to get through the other projects I've got going on. If you've got something like this, something near and dear to your heart, it's a little beat up from childhood, let me know. Send me a message or send me an email, severnrunwoodcraft@gmail.com. Contact me through my Facebook or Instagram DMs. And I don't know, let's see what we can do. I found this penny inside of the piano, and I'm going to take that as, I guess, my payment for refinishing this for Tori. I hope she loves it. Once again, thank you for joining me in this video and following me along, and until next time, see you later.